taking letters to agents and publishers, it really can't be more than about 60 words, because that's all they're going to read. They're not going to read a two-page sort of diatribe on what my book is about. It's like 60 words. And try and explain my book in 60 words. It's not possible. So I think you could just say, well, I tend to sort of go fairly broadly and say it's kind of metafiction. It's stories about books, which doesn't tell you anything, does it? Really? To be honest, you know, a sort of a treatise on Dostoevsky is books about books, really, isn't it? So it doesn't tell you anything. I just generally say, okay, we have to imagine that there is a book world behind the printed page. There exists all the characters and all the books you've ever loved. Are all there, off duty, not being read, and they're up to mischief, and somebody has to sort them out, and that somebody is Thursday Next. So that's about as close as I can get. So it's kind of intriguing, but it doesn't really tell you what it's really all about.
Just gives you that little bit of taste.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, little teaser.
On that.
Teaser. Yeah.
So it did take you 12 years to get the first book published. Yeah. What were I imagine you had a life before that. What was your background?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, that was it. That was all of it.
I just popped into existence.
That's it. So what was your background like to lead you to wanting to write?
Well, it's strange. Strange background, actually. Oddly enough, I'm completely academically unqualified to be an author, which is perhaps actually quite for anyone who's trying to write and perhaps hasn't gone to university or anything like that. Don't worry. You don't need to. I did it, so can you. It's quite easy. It just takes a lot more perspiration. But no, I left school at 18. That was it. I joined the film industry. I worked for nearly 20 years in the film industry. And about halfway through my tenure in films, I started writing short stories, essentially as treatments to scripts that I was going to write, but then didn't. Because I kind of fell in love with the written word and the whole prose thing. And just started writing short stories with odd narrative dares, and I wrote about 20 short stories. One of them was about, I thought, here's a good funny idea. Humpty Dumpty is murdered and somebody's responsible. So, and that was just taking this one idea, this narrative dare as I call them, and I expanded that into 100,000 words and having a bit more fun with it. It's not just about Humpty Dumpty, it's about a lot of things. It's basically taking the tired crime genre and sort of putting a mirror up to it and saying how daft it is, but how fun it is as well. So anyway, so that's what I did basically in the film industry. Then I started writing. When I wasn't working on a film, I was working on a book, and eventually, after 7 books and 12 years, I finally found an agent. Yeah, that was 12 years ago. Yeah.
How did you pitch it to them? The same way that we just talked about? How do you do that?
Well, yeah, I mean, I just did those 60-word pitches. I knew I wasn't under any illusion about how hard it would be, and I knew it was difficult with my books. In fact, there was a point the first book I wrote was The Big Over Easy. Originally, it was called Who Killed Humpty Dumpty, because I thought I could sell it on the title alone. how naive was I? So that was my first book. Then I wrote a sequel to a book I couldn't get published. Strategy, not a strong point, obviously, which was The Fourth Bear. That was the second book I wrote, and I thought those were really going to work. I really thought they would sell, and they didn't. I just got rejections. No one even read them. They just said, "Sounds like a stupid idea. Forget it." When I went, no, I think these are good. I want to know why the porridge was at different temperatures when it was poured at the same time, because it doesn't make any sense to me. And why Mummy Bear and Daddy Bear were sleeping in separate beds. That doesn't make any sense either. And clearly this is a story that needs to be told. An enigmatic blonde who goes missing. I mean, if that's not a mystery thriller, I don't know what is. So anyway, who trashes the house, and sleeps in the bed, So I don't know, something odd going. So I wrote that, and as I said, rejected. And then I thought, this is quite a good idea, because I was using classical characters in the Fourth Bear. I paid homage to Dorian Gray. In the second book, in the Fourth Bear, and I thought, yes, I could do some fun with this. So I thought, right, let's have Jane Eyre being kidnapped out of Jane Eyre. But there was a time after I wrote Jane Eyre, and I was kind of thinking, well, if they don't like the crime books, which I think are my straight books, those are the no-nonsense, just totally ordinary straight books. Really quite dull, actually, to be honest.
Yeah.
Just really straight crime, really. And it was after those I thought, well, if I want to be published, clearly I've got to start changing my tune. I've got to start writing something that people will want to read. You know, maybe I should be targeting my writing. And then I thought, well, why the heck should I do that? I'm actually enjoying this, writing the stuff I want to write. So, you know, clearly this is a hobby and may remain so for the remainder of my days. So I'm just going to write whatever I want, and whatever I want turned out to be the Air Affair.
And was that well received in England? Because that's where it was published
well, not
first,
for another
right?
7 years.
Well, yeah. Once it was published.
Once it was published, yeah, it was. It was well received in the UK, and this buzz went over the pond. Oddly, how these things work, and this because it was my first book, and I had no idea how things worked. I didn't know how unusual it was, and I had people from Penguin, screaming at me, don't you know how amazing this is? And I'm being my very British reserved way, saying yes, jolly good, yeah, jolly good. Yes, they go, no, you don't understand. They're running around screaming, throwing themselves out windows, and I'm going, yes, jolly good. No, but what happened was that I think librarians and English teachers got hold of it. And they went, yes, this book is for us. We love it. And they were like getting everyone to read it. And this buzz kind of developed, in the US. And it got on to I think it was number 6 or 7 on the New York Times bestseller list, which for a debut author, a British debut author, it is quite remarkable, especially when you consider that it's a book that has Jane Eyre, time travel, dodos, vampires, werewolves, and an interesting digression on the authorship of the Shakespeare plays. all in one, and everyone was going, I don't understand how this book could actually get published at all, let alone get to number 5 or 6 on the New York Times bestseller list. So anyway, I was delighted, and thank you to librarians everywhere.
Well, and as an ex-librarian, I remember when it came out.
You're an ex-librarian?
I am.
Okay, do you know the Dewey System?
Yes.
What's 440?
What's 440?
Yeah, quickly now. Come on.
What's
440? Anyone?
A big block, no bar.
It's what?
A big block, no bar.
No. Anyone else?
Any excellent.
What
was it?
German language?
A language. French. Who said French?
Yes, French.
Yeah,
Oh,
French.
we have no prizes.
Yeah. Oh, we can think of a prize. Yeah, it was French actually. But language. I would have accepted languages.
Thank you. Well,
Yeah.
obviously X is what it should be. But I remember when it came out, that was the book we wanted. Anybody who came up to the desk, you have to read this. Explain it. What's it about? Just read it.
Just read it.
And it was
Yeah,
a
that was our selling point. Just read it. Don't ask, just
Don't
read
ask.
it. It would have been great under Stalin, wouldn't it?
Yes. Yes.
Don't ask, just read it.
Just-
Oh, all right.
Okay. So did you know it was going to be a series? Did you think it was going to be?
No, not at all. In fact, if you read the Air Affair again, as I know you do on a regular basis,
I do.
weekly, in fact, it is actually a standalone book. I mean, it really doesn't read like a series book at all. But when I got published, or when I was having the interview, because I had to have an interview, it was quite sort of worrying actually. Because they knew, I think, this is Hodder now in the UK, I think they knew that they couldn't sell it just on the book alone. They had to have me going around sort of talking and sort of doing stuff. So I went up for a meeting, and then all these people came into the room whilst we were meeting to look at me over like this. Like that. And, will there be a website? Oh yes, and all that. Do you want to go on tour? Oh, love it, and all this sort of stuff. Just saying yes to everything.
Say yes.
In an effusive manner as I could. And they said, could you do a sequel? Oh, absolutely. Things. No, I have no idea.
I
and they went, and they said, and have you got plans? And I went, oh yeah, like this, yeah, absolutely. What's it called? Lost in a Good Book. Ah, fantastic title. Just sort of popped into my head.
This is why you're a writer.
Yeah,
It's
well,
so
absolutely.
good.
If I'd been staring at the ceiling, I would have said rotating fan. But yeah, anyway, so that was it. So yeah, and then it became a series.
And what else was I going to ask? Now my brain is
Don't know.
numb.
The Dewey System has got to you.
It has. I'm a failure because of that. What kind of writing style? I know your style, but do you write every day? Do you?
Yes.
Is it like a job?
It is very much like a job. In fact, I work harder now than I did ever before.
Is it supposed to work that way?
No,
I always
no,
thought
it's not. No,
You're
it's-
supposed to be like Stuart Woods and buy a plane and do all that
yeah,
stuff?
you're meant to do. Yeah, I don't know. I think how it's meant to work really is that you write one book and it's a phenomenal success, and you get trillions of dollars, and then you write another one about 9 years later that's rubbish, and you earn only like $500 billion, and then you spend the rest of the time having a great time. I mean, that's how I thought it worked, but it isn't like that at all. You have to work really hard and bring out a book every year.
So you write every day?
Yeah, each book usually takes, the exception of Shades of Grey, my Shades of Grey, of course, or as we call it, 49 fewer Shades of Grey. Not 49 less Shades of Grey. That wouldn't be good English. That one took me nearly 2 years. It took a long time to write that one. I don't know why, to be honest. But they usually take about, it's about 110 days. That seems to be where they seem to slot in. 110 days over about 7 months. So you kind of figure that out. So 360 days in a year, what's that? It's about 170 in 6 months. So yeah, I'm working pretty much, sort of 5 or 6 day weeks. And that requires 10-hour days.
And do you... you have to plot this out. I mean, it's
no, I don't.
It just comes out.
Spews
the
out.
whole different world, the alternative.
I'm sorry. Everyone is really surprised by this, and in fact, I let the cat out of the bag years ago because it's far easier to tell the truth than lie because then you have to have a good memory. It's very hard. So no, I don't plot at all. What I do is I have my little narrative there, as I mentioned earlier. But otherwise, thank you. But otherwise, very impressed by the narrative idea. No, I I have some notions in my head about where I think it should go, and I have some themes I want to exploit. But for the most part, I just start writing, and then things slot into place. And if they don't work, I rewrite them. And if they do work, then I go, yeah, that's okay. And then I'll be on sort of chapter 4 or something, and then I'll have a really good idea, and I'll go, I have to go back to the beginning and bring in the new idea. And it just goes along like that, sort of right, and I get to the sort of narrative horizon, as I call it, and then I sort of stall, and then I go back to the beginning again. I go, oh, I know where it's going to go. But it can take 2 weeks to get through that sort of 5 chapters.
To get through the whole thing.
And then I've got a whole heap of other ideas.
Do you have like little paragraphs on all sorts of like the Baconians and little things that you go on? Because there's so much bits of history and people. And
I mean, it's a lot easier now actually since sort of Wikipedia was invented. That's really good now, I must say. It's getting better and better. But here's a hint for any school teachers here: if your pupils given an essay and all the nouns are blue, you know they've nicked it from Wikipedia. You can have that one for free. No, but Wikipedia's got great. But in the old days of actually trying to find information on the web, the web's a lot better these days than it was before. But no, I even remember actually going into a library and looking stuff up.
That does my heart good.
I know,
So
I know.
nice.
But it's sadly there's just so
No
much
one
of it
does
on the
it
web
anymore,
now.
yeah.
No one does it anymore, including me. I do know. I have to know a little bit about this and that and the other. But the great thing about doing what I do and the sort of slightly fast and loose with facts and being reverently irreverent, as I call it, with the classics, is that for the most part I can sort of find a small nub of truth and then sort of twist it to my own nefarious purposes. In the same way as I treat sort of physics and science and stuff like that.
Twist it around.
Yeah, just twist it around to make it totally impossible. And I get emails from physicists who say things like, well, actually, Mr. Ford, but the idea about having a world on the inside of a globe, it isn't possible. And I usually email back with a kind of it depends on the tone of them. If it's kind of jokey tone, I send back a little certificate I have, which is a certificate of pedantry. Which they can hang on their wall, and they do. They email me back saying how happy they are to receive this, because it all looks very official, and from the University of Pedantry of Mid Wales. And I send emails back saying, is that the only mangling of physics that you found? You missed a huge amount. There's one of my favourites I really, really enjoy is Mycroft Next, who is Thursday's uncle, so a mad inventor uncle. All his inventions couldn't work. The minimum entry requirement for a Mycroft invention is it can't work in the real world. It's just not possible. It's a sarcasm early warning device. Translating carbon paper, another real favourite. But the Nextahedron is a really good one of mine. I really, really like, because this is an irregular polyhedra. Regular polyhedra is like a cube. Right. An irregular polyhedra has funny shaped sides, and it's unstable on all its faces. Right. So basically, you put it on the ground, and it falls onto another face, and it falls onto another face, and it just carries on falling forever. And I love that idea. Completely impossible, but you kind of think about it and you go, Yeah, okay, because you can have a regular. Oh, I'm going boring now. Anyway, but yeah, you get the idea. You get the idea.
Do you get a lot of email from people saying
Yeah, quite a lot.
you
yeah.
can't do this?
You can't.
or
No,
this
no. I think most people realise.
They really appreciate
Yeah,
what
I
you're
think
doing.
they do. I think they do, and they like the fact that it's also it's popular physics as well,
Mhm.
and it's tongue in cheek, and it's kind of understanding it. And I had this subatomic particle called the Made-Upian, which, let's face it, most of real sort of
Really is.
esoteric physics is about making up just sort of pretending there's some sort of subatomic particle, and then spending trillions to try and figure out whether it is or not. So I thought a Made-Upian is actually a really good name for it. Yes, yeah, the Made-Upian.
Now, how many series do you have going
I
right now?
think it's 4 at the last.
You have
count.
4 series, and
Yes, and I can't seem to finish any of them.
I was going to.
Yeah, I apologise to everybody.
Wait, do you have a favorite? Is that like choosing which child you like best?
No, that's easy.
Oh.
Yeah. That's what.
Oh, that's
Yeah, I mean, when you got your children, yes, I mean, I have twins, and people say, "Oh, what's like having twins?" I go, "It's fine. You just figure out which is your favourite, and then everything's there's no problem." No. In case there are any of my children here, check. I've got quite a few. So no, I don't know really. I mean, I sort of love them all dearly. They are like children, really. I do like the nursery rhyme series, nursery crime series, and I'm sort of a bit annoyed that sort of the rest of the world has caught up with me on that, because I'd still like to write number 3. But everyone's doing, Puss in Boots and Humpty Dumpty and all that kind of stuff, and it's just very done at the
They're
moment.
just on.
Yeah,
jumping
so
on
I'll
bandwagon.
leave it. Yeah, and the Grimm, isn't it? And the next one, I've heard from my publishers that there's going to be a sort of fusion of sort of Grimm and 50 Shades of Grey. So we're going to.
No.
Yeah, so we're going to see erotic nursery rhymes. Not from me. Not from me. So that's the next thing coming up.
That's
It's
the
like
next big
like
thing.
Snow White, 50 Shades of Snow White. That's quite a good title, actually.
Did you want to write that one?
No, I don't. I won't do that. No.
So your standalone one, the one that has the color as the thing.
Oh yeah, yes, that's kind of not a standalone. Well, I did
Isn't
rather
it?
rashly. Yeah, this is Shades of Grey.
Yeah.
I did rashly actually write on the end of the book, that there will be another 2, and I even wrote down the
Yes, I
the
have. People here are
titles.
waiting for them too.
to give this notion some sort of credibility, which it shouldn't really have. There will be. I mean, clearly, I spent a lot of time inventing that world, and to only use it in one book, for me, seems like an awful waste of imagination, to be honest. And there's a lot of stuff going on that I haven't fully explained. But just for those people who do want to see a Shades of Grey sequel or prequel, yes, and you are many. What's going to happen is, at the moment I'm working on Return of Shandar, which is the 3rd in the Dragon Slayer, which will actually finish a series, which is good. After that, I've got a super secret standalone that I'm writing, that I've been wanting to write for a while, which will be a standalone. And after that, there will be a standalone novel that will be set in the Shades of Grey world, which will be about 2 or 3 weeks before the something that happened. The characters, it won't be Jane and Eddie, so we'll probably get back to them afterwards, and we got plenty for them to be going on with. So yeah, we just set in the world, because the world is set. The world is Eddie Russett is the first person narrative, and he's a bit incurious about the world, and no one really knows what the world is about. So it's a bit tricky to explain what's going on. So I feel a prequel, a deep
prequel
prequel
coming on.
might help.
Now, I heard that super secret
standalone. Yeah.
Is it that secret you can't say
Yeah, it
anything
is
about
actually. It's so secret even I don't know what it is. So I mean, I've got some vague ideas, but I'm
So
kind
if
of.
you keep calling it the super secret
Yeah, but I always get this sort of worry that, because I remember telling people about Shades of Grey before I started writing Shades of Grey, and someone said, "Oh, that's all like so and so," and I went, "Oh, for goodness sake." Really? Is it like? And then I had to go and look at it and think, no, it's not, and it was just a waste. And so I thought, right, I just want to write it and get on with it, and
Don't tell
not worry
anybody
about it, and
until
don't
it
tell anyone.
comes.
And I don't know how it evolved. That's the wonderful thing about the fun I have with writing, is that I have a vague idea what the book's going to be about, but until I start writing it and letting it evolve and darken and spread like fungus, I really don't know what it's going to be like. It's exciting. If ever you pick up a Jasper Fforde book and you go, I have no idea how this is going to turn out, don't worry, neither did I. And I hope it shows, actually. I hope it shows. Yeah.
Well, this is the perfect time to open it up to questions,
Oh,
if
right,
that's okay with you.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. Yeah.
Anybody?
Questions?
I can't imagine no one has a question.
You have a question?
Man
Well,
with
I
Adorable
was just
Baby.
wondering what your favorite book is as an author, not as for the
Oh.
readers, but as your.
What, of other people's books?
No, of your.
Oh, mine?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I think my favourite is probably The Fourth Bear, because it kind of all fits together really nicely. And I kind of really like the whole Dorian Gray thing, and Somworld is a huge favourite of mine. I was actually going to mine the book for ideas when I was writing the Thursday Next book. I thought I could use Somworld, I could use that. Then I thought, no, I must keep that book. So I was going to nick stuff out of it, but in the end I didn't, and that was good news. And I just like it. And what's not to like about talking bears? They're just good. Talking animals are funny. They're just brilliant. I love them. And the whole the right to arm bears thing. It's just great. It all just works so well. But the book I'm most proud of, I think, is Shades of Grey, which I'm hoping has not yet reached its that it's you guys are very kindly reading it and everything, but it's not out there in the bigger world. And I'm just hoping that we can promote it, even if we have to change the name. Yeah.
So how about your favorite author?
I couldn't really say. I mean, I have so many different books that I really like. I have a very eclectic taste in, I'm actually very fickle when it comes to authors, to be honest. I'll read like a couple of books and then move on to something else.
Yeah.
Terrible, really. Anyway, yeah. Yes. More hands up. I think.
Yeah, your books are pretty complex, and I'm wondering if you ever lose your way in your books, or do you do any kind of, I'm not sure what the word would be, continuity, consistency checking across a series, or do you care?
Yeah. So.
Did you guys all hear that?
Yeah, it was basically about the book's very complex, and do I have to make notes for myself or continuity check and stuff like that? Yeah, sort of yes and no, really. The problem about writing, series books is that you have to get all the sort of continuity correct. And for the most part at the moment, I think I have. There might have been a couple of little things where it doesn't quite work. I think that's probably why. When I'm writing series now, the first 4 books slotted together quite easily as like one very large book in 4 annual instalments, from Air Affair to Something Rotten. And when Something Rotten ended, in fact, I could have just stopped the series there quite easily, and that would have been it. But all the other, I knew then that after writing 4 books, I would have to reread all 4 every time I wrote another book, and then 5, and then 6, and whatever. So after that, First Among Sequels, which was the first sequel, was in fact exactly what it was. It was the first sequel, and each one after that is a sort of standalone sequel in which I take isolated incidents and then sort of exploit them. So that's how I sort of got away with it, really. But I do have a whole stack of books with little post-its in, which show sort of unused plot lines that I sort of threw in for myself. Because although I say I have no plan, and I have really no plan when I'm writing, I have what I call the no plan, which is quite ingenious, because I know that if one knows one's own failings, then of course you can plan for that and make it work for you. And I always think in every in the worst car wreck there's always one usable bolt. So it's a good way of thinking about it. So what I do is when I'm writing, I say, well, right, I'm writing sort of Lost Me Good book, and I know this is a series book, but I don't know what any of the books are going to be like. I had no idea about Well of Lost Plots when I was writing Lost Me Good book. But if you read them now, you'll actually see that they actually drift into one another rather easily. So what I did for myself is I left little off-ramps and on-ramps throughout the book that I could pick up at a later date. This really is hugely beneficial in two ways. First of all, I can bring in silly ideas without them suddenly appearing as if by magic and being very jarring. Because the great thing about writing absurdist stuff is that you can play with very strange and unusual ideas. But if you suddenly, go, aha, here's a man with a turnip balance on his head, it's very stupid. But if I've mentioned that there might be a man with a turnip balance on his head, in a previous book, then you'll just go, oh yeah, I know about that, that's no problem at all. So that works quite well. And the second part of it, of course, is that then I can exploit these ideas as I wish, and it looks like it's an interconnected book, when in fact it's not. It's all very, very sneaky. Ignore the man behind the curtain. But that's kind of what I am. Right at the back there.
Thank you. So you're talking about continuity in one series. What about all of your series? Because in every single one of them, there's something like Jack Sprat, who is in the Thursday Next series, and then the lobster hood, which is also in The Last Dragon Slayer. Did you do that on purpose, or is it a happy accident?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it sort of sticks in my head anyway. And when I'm writing a series and I have Braxton Hicks wanting to talk to Thursday, I go, well, where are they going to go? And I go, well, they're probably going to Toast Parlour, but we kind of want a new toast. Well, what about Yo Toast? Yeah, that'll work. So they go into a Yo Toast Parlour and all the toast goes past on a little conveyor belt. You know? And it's just things like that. And the Blessed Ladies of the Lobster just turn up in every single book. It's like, apart from Shades of Grey is totally, I think there's maybe one or two references very obliquely. But also, I think the newspapers, I think Toad News Network turns up in all of them as well. The Toad and the Owl and the Mole and all that, which were originally actually from Edgar Allan Poe. All of them, in fact. The Gadfly, all of those are from the Literary Life of Thingum Bob. It's a short story by Poe, but that's where they all come from. And I actually met someone who said, oh, I used Toad News Network, I did that years ago. And I went, yeah, it was from Poe. He went, was it? I went, yeah. So neither of us have the precedent on that particular idea. But no, when I'm writing things, I just think about it and I suddenly realise, yeah, oh, I remember that. I can use that, and then just drift it all together. And it just makes it seem more lifelike. It makes the fantasy world seem more real. If all of a sudden you're walking through this landscape and there are familiar things in the landscape, and I think that really works, for series books set in a very strange alternative world. Yeah. I think we're here.
I became familiar with your books through audio, which in some cases I found a lot easier than reading, especially when it goes into footnotes. The woman who does the recordings, did you have to explain to her, hey, read it in this order, I like this voice for Thursday? She does a phenomenal job. I just want to know how much coaching she had to get from you to be Thursday.
Yeah, I had nothing whatsoever to do with the audiobooks. Nothing at all. In fact, I didn't realise they were going to do some audiobooks until I think sort of maybe the first or the second. They was just starting to talk about it. And I was writing, I think, Well I've Lost Plots at the time, and I thought, aha, because I'm always looking for jokes to play on people because I think it's quite amusing. And I thought, why don't I write in names they can't pronounce?
Is that when you put the Welsh names?
That'd be really funny, So I introduced this sort of 12th century saint called St. Svulks, and he was solely there because he has a name that you can't really pronounce. It's and he's only there really, but to fox the speaking book figure. And this is one of the tenets by which I write by, which is the never-ending pursuit of a lame joke, which is kind of how I've run my life really. Anyway, so I wrote in this St. Svulks, and I thought that was very funny, and I get a call actually from a producer about sort of 8 months later, saying, could we run through some pronunciations? And by this time I've forgotten all about this sort of stuff. And finally he gets through the Welsh pronunciations and eventually says, yes, and what's this since like that? And I go, oh well, any way you like it really. And he goes, no, you're the author. And I said, damn, okay, it's St. Svulks, and that's how you pronounce it. But anyway, St. Svulks actually, when I invented him, then I suddenly realised, oh, I can use this, and he actually has a really big part for himself, I think, in Something Rotten or something. So it's actually quite useful in the end. But there's a Mr. Grungskuk who appears in the Well Lost Plots as well. But I did get my own back, actually, because I thought, right, I've got to be subtler than this, clearly, because they're on to me. Right. So what I did is, I think it might be in Well Lost Plots Something Rotten. There is a line that says, that Bowden says to Thursday, agents, meaning, Spec Op agents, Tolkien heard you, no, was it Tolkien? No, heard you, agents heard you, spelt Hurdyw, and then comma, Tolkien's, as in JR, and then listening, as in LISSNING or something, heard you talking and listening. So actually, if you listen on the, I'm getting boring again, but if you listen on the talking books, it will actually sound like they're saying it twice.
Well,
so
like
agents heard you talking and listening, heard you talking and listening. So when I say the never-ending pursuit of a lame joke, you can see I'm really, yeah, but it's just a stupid joke. It really, I mean, it amuses you here now, and it amused me when I wrote it, but no one else noticed. But it amuses me. Right,
we
more
got-
questions.
What
Oh,
do we got
yes.
there?
Where?
How does living in Wales and writing in that area influence the Thursday Next series?
How does living in Wales influence the Thursday Next series? Well, the Welsh Socialist Republic is clearly a big thing, which is great, really. The Shades of Grey is set in Wales, set in mid-Wales, although there's no Welsh place names, because by that time they've all gone and they've been replaced by colour names. So East Carmine is a place called Rhayader, which is up in mid-Wales. And when they go to High Saffron, that's Aberystwyth. So it's kind of all set there, and I do love Wales very much. It's interesting, actually, the Welsh Socialist Republic came about by way of a sort of semi-argument with my then partner, now wife, who is Welsh, right? She comes from Carmarthen, she can speak Welsh. And the original, she was looking at the original unpublished manuscript of the Air Affair, and right at the very end, instead of as it is now, they go into the Welsh Socialist Republic. I actually had it set on board an airship, right? Because airship's great fun, and I'm a huge aviation nut, you know, so I could really talk about airplanes till your ears are bleeding, which I won't do, obviously, because I'm a generous person. But anyway, but it was all very techy, and because I love airships and they're great fun and everything, and you know, she has to fly up and hook on and all that kind of stuff, and then she has to sort of find her way through this old abandoned airship. And Mary read this and she said, yeah, you know, I love the book, because she's very nice like that. But she said, you know, I'm not sure about the whole airship thing. It's just a bit Boise, really, to be honest. And I went, because I really liked it, and I went, oh, like that. And I went, okay then, you, the Welsh person, you. I'll set it in the Welsh Socialist Republic then. How's that? I went, oh, okay. That might work, actually. Hang on a sec, you know. And I scurried off back into my scriptorium, and I got rid of the airship and put in the Welsh Socialist Republic. But that's how books change, you know, really do. I mean, it's as simple as that. But once I'd had the Welsh Socialist Republic idea, then of course that opens up a whole, you know, plethora of new plot possibilities, including cheese smuggling, which came true. So how weird is that? But anyway, but yes, I mean, it's a very lovely place to live. So yeah. Right. Yes.
Your website is as complex as your books,
Yeah.
and quite amusing. How much do you design yourself? Do you write yourself? What kind of influence do you have on your website?
Right, this is my website, jasperford.com. Well, it's all done by myself and Mary, all of it, and it's all done in raw code. It's not done through anything like Dreamweaver or anything like that. It is. It's in HTML. We learnt HTML in 2001, and we still use it. But if you look at the website, you can see how amateurish it is. Really, the way in which it's constructed is completely basic. It's basically just pictures and text, and that's it. And we're quite good with Photoshop as well, so we can just very quickly make up little, you know, whatever to put in it. But apart from so we learned HTML pretty much in 2000, and apart from putting justified text in about 2007, that was about the sum total of our technical achievements in website design. And if you look at it, it was all very basic. You know, it's pretty much everything down the middle, really. But it is totally author-generated. There is absolutely no part of it which has been put there by my publishers. So it's just all stuff, all the spelling errors and everything. It's all us. It's all us, and it is huge now. I think it's got about 1,300 pages, and you could explore it for, you know, weeks and probably never find an end to it. We just add it and add it and add it. We never take anything away, you know. And someone was saying to me, and they said to me, Jasper, look at your website, and I went, oh, thank you. And he says, I'm a web designer, you know. I went, oh, really? And I said, yes, it does look a bit old-fashioned. He said, no, it's brilliant, because it looks like how we used to do websites in the old days. Which I kind of liked. It's like classic, website classic. You know, how we used to have websites in the 2000s, in those years, in those dark ages. You know, so many years ago, you know, when I started my website, there was only 15 million sites on the planet, right? And now there's like, you know, I don't know what it is, trillions. But at that time, you know, it was, whoa, we're a website, whoa, it's so new, exciting. Anyway, but yeah, but just explore, you know, have fun with it. It's kind of like after-sales service, I call it. But yeah, no, it's good fun. We put lots of stuff on it. Yeah. There was another question over there.
Do you have a favorite character from any of your series, or a character that you relate to most?
Oh, a favourite character or a character I relate to most? I don't know. I mean, it's an odd one, that. Authors' relationship with their characters. I haven't really kind of figured it out yet. I kind of think that all your characters are different versions of me, basically, on the basis that they have to be. Favourite characters? I don't know, really. I like Sprocket a lot, who's a Clockwork Butler, because I feel everyone needs a butler, and I think there's no truer word ever spoken by anyone, really. That life would be immeasurably better if we all had our own butler, and the room would have obviously twice as many people in it. Right? But it just seems so perfect to have. You want to go shopping, and yes, I've just got the car out. Oh, thank you very much. It's perfect. It'd be wonderful. So I do like him. The idea of clockwork humans, I think, is quite fun as well. And I quite like Melanie, who's Bradshaw's wife, who's a gorilla. She's quite fun, actually. It's a very understated way. I don't know, all sorts of little characters who turn up here and there that I really like. I mean, Cindy as well, Spike's wife, who is a hitman for the mob. And wanted to call herself the Widowmaker, but they got it wrong on the cards and it says Windowmaker. But it was too expensive to get it redone, so she just gives out cards with Windowmaker. And I think that's kind of sweet, really. And she has little pink tassels and stuff attached to her sniper rifle, because she's a bit girly. So I kind of like that. But all sorts of little characters I think are quite fun. And Ashron and Hades again, and Aornis, they're great. Aornis is a better baddie, I think, because she's genuinely wicked. But Ashron is kind of, he's flawed, really, horribly flawed as a baddie, because he just really wants to be famous as a baddie. He doesn't actually want the money or anything. He just wants people to point at him and go, oh, isn't that Ashron Hades? Yes, dear, he's the third most evil man on the planet, and he wants to be the first. Yeah. So, more questions? Yes.
Is there any prospects for film or TV?
Movies. Yeah. Well, sort of yes and no, really. I mean, the thing about making my books into movies would be quite hard. The Thursday Next series. The books that make best. Try and get this right. The books which translate best into movies aren't books at all. They're short stories. And they're usually Stephen King short stories. If you want to look at books into films, he's probably got the best adaptations. I mean, Stand By Me is probably the best adaptation of a short story ever done anywhere, I think. Touching the Void, the Joe Simpson book, that was a good adaptation. I thought The English Patient was better as a film, to be honest. People would disagree. I think really a film is not right for the Thursday Next series. I think it would work better as each book being sort of 6 1-hours for TV. And then you could really get into the whole fun of it and the ensemble cast and all the myriad of little sort of, subplots and stuff. But that would be very expensive, and there's probably only about 3 companies on the planet who could do it, and none of them are particularly interested because it's not a book that's on everyone's radar. If this room had, sort of 10,000 people in it, then clearly it would already be made. But at the moment, it's not quite. Unfortunately, it's not quite, on everyone's radar. But for the other books, what we do is we have this criteria, because once you sell a book, it's gone. That's it. If you're a novelist, you sell a book, it's gone, and they buy everything. Sequel rights, character rights, the whole thing. It's gone, and it would be like selling your house and then going around the following day and complaining about the colour of the curtains they've just put up. You can't do it. So once you sell it, you've really got to decide who is the best person to sell it to. That is the best way you can ensure that it's going to be made into a half-decent film, or hopefully. So what we say is, right, I have to have heard of a movie that you've made and liked it. Right, that's the criteria, because I do get emails from people saying, oh, I've produced this and this and this and this, and they reel off 10 credits. I haven't heard of a single one of them. And we've had 3 proper meetings in 12 years. But we've got someone interested at the moment in the nursery rhyme series. but no one has asked about Shades of Grey. Too complex. Too complex. Yeah. Yes.
I think the gingerbread man character is
Mm.
awesomely horrible.
Yeah. I should have mentioned that earlier. I do like the gingerbread man.
How'd you come up with that?
I don't know really. It was a long time ago. It was in '94. I'm not sure why I came up with it. I think the point being that I was trying to wrong foot the reader. I like the idea of him being really dangerous and sort of psychopathic, and I've probably seen Silence of the Lambs quite recently. So that did sort of pop into my head, and the fact that whether he was a cookie or a biscuit was I think quite relevant. But what I was trying to do is there is a bit of misdirection there, of course, because you start to forget that he is a gingerbread man, and you start forgetting the story of the gingerbread man and what the gingerbread man fears most of all. And of course, when Jack finally dispatches the gingerbread man, then you realise this. Yes, of course, I should have seen that coming. And that was the whole "is he a biscuit, is he a cake" thing. So I think it was just sort of trying to play with it. Oh yeah, I know it is a bit scary. Yeah. But no, he is a good character because I just like the idea of him being so insanely dangerous and violent. Pulling people's arms out their sockets just for fun. Yeah, just a really good baddie. Yeah. Oh, we have someone in the back there.
How did you come up with the name Thursday Next?
How did I come up with the name Thursday Next? This was on my list of names, and I really do have such a thing. And when I see a really good name or something that could be a name but couldn't, it's kind of borderline. It's like Thursday Next. You go, well, it could be a name, kinda, but it's not like a silly name, which couldn't be a name, like Bibble will muck sklubble blubble or something. That you couldn't have that. So there's a narrow line there. My mother used to say Thursday Next. Well, she still does actually. My mother says Thursday Next instead of next Thursday. She was born in 1927, and you did those sort of things in those days, and they kind of stay with you as a habit. She doesn't say mirror; she says looking glass, and that is again a generational sort of way of using language. And I just liked it. Thursday Next. It actually has an internal rhythm. It has a dum-de-dum. And a lot of good English has de-dum-de-dums in it. If you ever listen to any Shakespeare, it's full of de-dum-de-dums. Or meter, I suppose we should call it. So, and also it's also something like a kind of it's an enigmatic name, and it's clearly a woman's name, And it's like Bowden Cable was another great name I thought was perfect, because a Bowden Cable is the sleeved cables that are on your bicycle. That's invented by Frank Bowden. It's called a Bowden Cable. And Braxton Hicks, many people here, not all, will know what Braxton Hicks is. And then I was being driven through Wisconsin, and I saw something that said Speedy Muffler. And I went, well, that's perfect now. It's for someone who runs the racy novel genre with his deputy Jiffy Lube. And that are just perfect names. And I just jot them down. Landon Park Lane, again, was just a name I really, really liked. In fact, if I was to translate his name into American, he would be Landon Boardwalk. Because he's actually from the Monopoly set. So that's why his parents are called Bilden and Howson. I know, a bit of a groaner, isn't it? There you go. Yeah, but we have Park Lane and Mayfair, and you have Boardwalk and Park Place. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
How about one more question, and then we'll get to signing.
Yeah.
This is going to be very esoteric, but
Yeah,
you seem to have
Yeah.
motifs of monorails and specific cars,
Mm.
which really appeals to me, being a guy.
Yeah.
And I was wondering where that came from, just strictly being a guy, or are you kind of a motorhead and
It's-
train spotter?
Being a guy. Yeah. It's not. I think it's being a boy actually, rather than being a guy. I think boys are really interested in cars, and we never kind of grew up really. No, I was talking to you personally, clearly across the years. I always like choosing good cars. They're always good cars. I haven't managed to get the D-Type Jaguar in yet, but things like I think there was the Buick Roadmasters, which is a beautiful car. So I always try and sneak the really good ones in. And monorails, I think, are just good fun. I go on about monorails a lot. Morning, noon, and night. One track mind. Yes, old joke. But all that technical stuff, and there's a few aeroplane references. Miles Hawke, who's a character name, that actually is an aeroplane. Miles used to make aeroplanes just after the war, during the war, and they made something called a Miles Hawke, which was a very beautiful racing aircraft. So I do sneak a few airplane references in. In fact, the whole idea, I think, of Mary lives on a Short Sunderland flying boat during the nursery rhyme series, and in fact Thursday does as well. Thursday actually has to start up the number 3 engine just to keep it going, which you have to do with those engines. And in fact, the startup procedure is completely correct. But I had to sneak it in a little way because she's having a conversation with someone at the time, and they're going through all this sort of thing. So if you ever find yourself on a Short Sunderland flying boat, ladies and gentlemen, and the engines have stopped and they don't know how to restart them, then you can run up to the cockpit waving your copy of When I've Lost Box, saying, "It's all right, I'm here." Have the instructions. Yeah.
I realize that I have not even mentioned the woman who died a lot.
Oh, we should mention that, shouldn't we?
The newest book.
I think they know.
You think that's
Yeah, I think they do.
Can you tell us just a little bit about it?
Oh my goodness, right, how long we got? Did we bring sleeping bags and a thermos and some sandwiches? This is Thursday, returning after the previous book, which is what's the name again? One of Our Thirds Is Missing. She's recovering really from the accident in the taxi. She's not feeling very well. Obviously, it seems bizarre to me that superheroes like James Bond can fall out of a moving car and then be running along the next day. Clearly, it would not work that way. So she's sort of limping around in a great deal of pain and sort of a bit of double vision, and really trying to sort of rebuild her life, but also deal with her teenage children and the one who doesn't exist, of course. And really taking up a lot of the sort of plot threads that I haven't been using recently, and just making a little domestic pot boiler. There's not much about the book world in it, I'm afraid. I just wanted her back in Swindon and just dealing with family and the whole bizarre world that is her real world. Yotos. Yotos, all kinds of stuff like that.
Jasper, thank you very much.
Good, thank you. Thank you.
Now we have a book to raffle off for those people who have, how many numbers do we have? 56. So choose a number between 1 and 56.
One 58. Oh no. Blew it. Between 1 and 56, 17.
Oh, someone was disappointed. 17.
And this is the number we got.
Yes, it is. It's
17.
There you go. If you would please fold up your chairs and put them against the wall.
It's like when I being at school, isn't it?
And of course, we'll have the signing just right over there.
Against the wall. Everybody gets
No, that's not.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, there's quite a few of us here tonight. So if you could please get in line by your number, it's on your ticket there, 1 through 56. For those of you who have a number larger than 20, if you could hang out a little bit more towards the store, and in about 5 minutes as the line dies down, we'll go ahead and have you guys line up.
They're recording this.
Oh, are they? Thank you.
We've just been streamed.
Right behind me.
Thank you.